Hi, I'm Rob.
I'm Lily.
And welcome to Hazel's Flight School. Today we are talking about Sicily, and we've got 4 great wines to choose from here, 3 colors. And before we get started, Lily, what do you know about Sicily or Sicilian wines generally?
I really don't know that much about Sicilian wine, but I'm excited to get into it.
Awesome. So a lot of people don't know this, but Sicily is an enormous vineyard. They grow more wine in Sicily than all the rest of Italy put together. I know, it's like one giant vineyard down there. And that includes right up on the slopes of that big volcano, Mount Etna, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But we're going to start with a rosé from Regaleali, a legendary producer coming out of Sicily. They have been around for forever. So we're going to sample their wines today, and then we're going to get into something a little different.
All right.
And we're going to start with the rosé. Now this rosé is made from one of the classic Sicilian red grapes, Nerello Mascalese. What do you think?
It's great. This is right up my alley. This is my kind of wine for sure. You get some great acid on this, but almost some bitter undertones. It reminds me a little bit of Aperol, and maybe it's just the color influencing me in that regard, but I really like it and I enjoy that flavor profile.
I'm inclined to agree, almost like a little bit of bitter orange or something like that for me coming through,
peel.
especially on the finish. It's also got a nice kind of cedary sort of pencil shaving herbal thing going on as well. Yeah, a lot of that is the grape.
And just the color is great.
Really like that color. So color, by the way, in a rosé is really just an indication of color. A lot of people think that as rosés get darker, they're going to get sweeter, but that is not strictly true. It really comes down to how much color, pigment and so on is in the grapes to begin with, how aggressively the winemaker is looking to extract those things to get it into the wine. So by and large, don't take color as too much of an indication of sweetness. The classic example is Tavel, which is from France, and we're not going to bump heads with those guys here, but those Tavels can look almost like a red wine, but they are bone dry. So again, darker color can be maybe some more fruit, a little more impact perhaps, but I wouldn't necessarily say a sweeter wine.
One thing I'm also noticing in this wine is that it doesn't have a lot of legs. I'm not noticing a lot of wine staying on the inside of my glass as I'm swirling this around, but I was hoping we could just talk about what exactly legs are, because that was something that was always really confusing for me.
Got it. So legs are, when we get the wine up on the glass, and actually you probably can't see it, but I can sort of see we got the little lines running down there. Yeah. Historically we thought you could use that to get a sense of the alcohol content of the wine. It might give you a little sense of the feel or the texture of the wine, and alcohol plays a role there. So what we're really looking at is the viscosity of the wine and how much surface tension it has. So wines that are going to be sort of, thicker for lack of a better word, or just feel fuller on your palate, can be more viscous. They can have more surface tension, and they'll tend to stick to the sides a little bit more. And whatever legs you see, then they'll tend to be thicker. They'll have more staying power, if you will. So legs are interesting. Maybe with a lot of practice, you might be able to make some educated guesses about what's in the glass, but by and large, as professionals, we don't pay too much attention to that.
And definitely for me at this point in my education, it's not an important characteristic.
Probably won't tell you much. Yeah, just an interesting thing to look at. And sometimes they do make cool patterns.
Yeah.
So that is a classic Sicilian rosé. Kind of food friendly, it feels like to me. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than a lot of rosés, a lot of detail going on there besides just the fruit. And we're going to find that with all these Sicilian wines, by the way. Ready for the white?
Ready for the white.
All right, let's do it. So what we're tasting here is the Regaleali Bianco, or simply white wine. And it's a blend, and often these wines will be blends. There are a lot of Sicilian grapes, and they can work very well together. They can bring different components. Some of the classic grapes, Grillo, for example, a very textural grape for me sometimes. Sometimes the Grillo can be almost oily, and it can be too much. So we have other grapes, Cotterado, for example, which is almost certainly in here. It's going to give more lift, more acidity, some floral notes, and so on. So the Sicilians, very good at blending these grapes, and often they're being grown together in the vineyards as well. And they just take what they are, make a beautiful white wine, and have at it. So what's your first impression here of this wine?
This one was interesting for me because very acidic punch, but also some like white floral notes, some earthy gardening notes, as well as some like tropical fruit. So there's really a lot going on in there.
Really very complex and well under $20 for a wine like that. So with a lot of these wines, we get great value, a lot of bang for your buck here. And yeah, this is a go-to recommendation for us when it comes to an all-around white wine. So much like the rosé, because of all those different things going on in that wine and the interplay of those, a very versatile food wine. And Sicily's got a pretty diverse food scene, don't get me wrong. You're never really that far from the ocean, so there's a lot of seafood mixed with a lot of sort of inland food, for lack of a better word. And they want whites and reds, for that matter, and rosés that are going to pair with a lot of different things on the table. So very versatile, really effective white.
Definitely.
I agree. All right, let's move to the red.
And what's the first red we're trying?
The first red we're trying, also from Regaleali, is the workhorse grape in Sicily, Nero di Avola. Now, Nero di Avola can have a reputation for being on the fuller-bodied side, but my experience is that, again, it's really more in the mid-weight side, very approachable, very easy drinking style. It's usually not too far out there on either end of the red wine spectrum, but you're going to satisfy yourself. What do you got?
Dark red fruits for me. Some plum in there, some currant in there, some lighter herbal components, maybe like poultry spices.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I enjoy the versatility of the 3 wines we've tried so far, because I feel like all of these pair well with a lot of different foods. It would also just be like a good patio sipper, summer sipper.
Yeah, all 3 of these wines we've tasted so far, I could have them with food or not. The wines don't care. I don't think you will either. I don't think you would. Yeah, which really highlights what the Sicilian wine scene is really all about, which is this versatility and these just sort of classically styled wines that will just pair with all these classic Sicilian dishes right across the board. I love the freshness of this wine, really approachable, right? Great finish on this wine too. Nice long kind of berry finish going on here as well. Juicy. This is straight up good Nero di Avola as far as I'm concerned, and it really illustrates, if you really don't know what you need, kind of much like Barbera from Piedmont, you just need a good red wine. You're not really sure if you're going to pair it or what you're going to pair it with. Nero di Avola, especially a really good example like this, it's going to get the job done.
Definitely.
Nice. So we're now in for a special treat, and we asked and we received an Etna Rosso. So where we are now is we are in the hottest part of Sicily now. We're up on the slopes of Mount Etna. We're getting this beautiful red wine growing right on the slopes of that literally smoking volcano. These wines are attracting so much interest right now, and with any luck, you're going to see why. Yum, 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 yum. What do you think?
I feel like I'm tasting the volcano.
Excellent. Yep, this is a particularly good example of that for me. A little smoky, almost flinty, and a little meaty too as well. I get almost like a little bit of a smoked meat thing going on, which, by the way, actually is something that we tend to find a little bit, sometimes without the smoke, in Burgundy. And you will hear a lot of professionals, myself included sometimes, drawing very close parallels between how Etna Rossos drink and how Burgundy, that is Pinot Noir from Burgundy, can drink. And this is a fairly light wine, only 12.5% alcohol, by the way. So in terms of body, kind of light, like a Pinot.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Very acidic too. The smokiness, the meatiness of the wine, along with that acid punch, was a really interesting combination, and something I haven't had simultaneously before. Yeah, super interesting wine. Definitely, like, based on what I was smelling, I would have expected it to be heavier.
Right. So when you smell that wine and you think this is going to be big, what you're getting is the intensity, the concentration of the fruit that's in that wine. And here we can draw a distinction between concentration in a wine and the body of a wine. So the concentration is the impression that you get of the intensity of the aromas and the flavors that are in the wine, whereas body is really more of a more strictly a textural thing, sort of, or a physical sense, if you will.
Gotcha.
I get a nice, really dense rose petal thing going on in here as well. And again, often we can compare these wines to Burgundy, to Pinot Noir. This one really kind of takes me in that direction. Sometimes when we talk about Piedmont wines, we talk about Nebbiolo. That can be a little on the lighter side as well. Some people kind of tend to take it in that direction a little bit. Kind of depends on how the grapes are being grown, the winemaker's decisions, and so on. For the record, most of the grapes that are in here, Nerello Mascalese, the same grape that made the rosé, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Nerello Mascalese, by the way, really the grape that I wouldn't say matters, but it's the one that really matters on the slopes of Mount Etna. And we get others, Nerello Cappuccio and a few others, but Mascalese is the grape that really seems to be shining up on that mighty volcano.
Definitely understand why.
That is Etna Rosso right there. Classy, elegant, maybe even just a little bit tart. This is a wine for you Pinot drinkers. I've said it a few times and I'll say it again. And juicy. I'm almost drooling now. Any final thoughts?
I just appreciate the versatility of these wines again, and also I think there's a lot going on. They're easy drinkers, but they're very complex at the same time. And it was just really fun to try them all.
Awesome. Glad you enjoyed it. I know I did. That's going to do it for this episode, folks. 4 great Sicilian wines for you to check out. Special thanks to André Siimpson and Synergy Fine Wines, a Colorado company, for bringing us their expertise and these beautiful wines.
Thanks for tuning into Flight School. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube and come fly with us again next time.